Okay, good morning, Professor Selwyn Cudjoe. So,
Good morning, my brother. Thanks for being here.
yeah. So I contacted you because, as you know, I'm very ignorant of our local history, and I'm beginning to see the importance of our history and what it means for our identity. So I actually only came across your works a couple days ago.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Where you came across it?
If you want to believe it, actually Wikipedia.
Oh, that's good. No, that's all right. I mean,
Yeah, I just had a sudden thirst for some of our local history. Not just knowledge, our local history in particular.
Yeah.
And just Google local historians. I mean, I always knew about Angelo Bessessa.
Yes, he died
Bessessa
recently or something.
Yeah, I regret not starting the show earlier to have him on.
That, yeah.
But I started looking at some of your videos and
my videos too.
Yeah,
Very good.
videos. Well, let's say, people our generation taking more stuff on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's very good. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, let's just get into your background a bit because most people that watching this wouldn't really be as aware of you.
You're right.
Some of the older generation.
I'm pleased that you decided to do this program because I think I was saying that my sister and I suspect were talking yesterday. We know that the old media, the newspaper, people reading newspapers and radio and television, people reading television are the older folks.
Yeah.
The younger folks go to YouTube and so on and so forth, so it may be put in forward. I write a weekly column, and only a certain group of people read it. But the younger folk do not.
Yeah.
So I'm pleased.
1 second, just put on the headphones. Yeah. So you could monitor your audio levels and you know how it's going to sound.
Yeah, so that I know the young people are not doing this, so that I'm pleased that you have done this and we've been doing this. You asked me about me. This is my house. This is my mother's house. It's now my sister's house. And I was born here. I was born in Tagarigua.
I was born about 5 minutes away. I used to ride these streets when I was...
Is that right?
Yeah, when I was in my teenage years, I used to ride all these streets.
All right. And what you should have known in your teenage years, that Tagar is probably one of the oldest villages in Trinidad.
Yeah, I only found that out recently. When I say recently, I mean over the past week, when I started looking at some of your videos and I saw you promoting your book, your new book, The Slave Owner.
The Slave Master Trinidad,
yes. And I didn't know that our biggest slave master was
right
from
in Orange Grove. Right in Orange Grove, the biggest fella. But even before him, Tagarigua is an Amerindian word. It's an Amerindian word, Tagarigua.
Do you know what it means?
I'm not too sure. But it's I have it in another book which I do. I'm sure, but I don't have it offhand. I did a book on the Indians, the Amerindians of Trinidad. And there was a dictionary of Amerindian words, which you find fascinating, written about 1884. So there's a dictionary, and I'll tell you what it means. I have to go back and look at it. But it was the oldest village, and of course then the move, when the Spanish and people, they began to move the Indians and put them into what is called encomiendas. Those are little working areas. They were like 3, San Juan and then Tagarigua, before they moved them all to Arima. So this is one of the oldest villages here. And it says has some of the oldest buildings.
Yeah, I see they want I see somebody recently bought the
Yes, you read my
house.
Yes,
I read it.
Yes. The point is here too that if you look at the church is the second built church in Trinidad, Anglican church. It was built in 1843. That's the St. Mary's Church right across there.
This church right on the corner?
18,
wow.
Well, of course. And that spot, they broke it down and had bought a new church. But that first church, the Tagarigua Anglican Church, was there. Then I went to what is called the Tagarigua AC School, not the one on the main road. It's one was just on the opposite side, which was built by slaves in 1837.
Wow.
It was built by slaves in 1837. The rectory right now, if you go to the rectory right now, across the street, was built in 1821. And then, of course, they broke down. We like to break down things. They broke down the school. And, of course, what you have now is, just that. So it's the oldest village. And I was born right here. I was lucky enough to be born here. So we call us districters. That's the one important fact of me. The second important fact is that very few families, black families, could trace their lineage to slavery. I can, as you would see in my book, if you read the Slave Masters. My great-grandfather was born here, not in this necessarily this house, but in this village, in 1833. And slavery ended in 1834. And my grandmother was born in 1837. So we go all the way back. As I said, one of the few families who in fact was born here. So Tago is a very important village.
And after that was the Anglican school. That was for primary school.
But I don't not what you're talking as a young man. It's just you only had one building, boy. You had church there. You had school there.
Yeah.
You had concert there. Everything took place in that one building because they weren't called not all purpose, but you wouldn't have that many buildings here. Right. You didn't have more than probably 500 people. When I was growing up, there were no Paradise East and Paradise West and all that stuff. That's recent. There was just cane field. Once you left behind my house here, all you went to is you see the forest, and you go up to the rivers, and you see sugarcane. There was nothing behind us. That's when I was growing up. So I used to go to, when I was going to school at Tagrago EC, I used to go to the river to bathe. We didn't have no shower, or you go by the pipe by the corner and bathe. So that's how rural, if you want to call it, it was.
Yeah.
So that, so we grew up in that, and of course we had no lights. My sister figures she's modern, but I am old. And when I was growing up, we had a lamp called Home Sweet Home. I grew up with a light. We didn't have any electricity. So one bedroom here. That second bedroom is where my brother and she came on later, and we slept there. And we'd open the windows to get breeze because the light was on the table. We read on the table. So it's really almost a replica.
Was it one of those lamps that when you touch it, it turns on?
No. That was no. That you had a kerosene light.
Oh, okay.
You know what's kerosene?
Yeah.
What is kerosene?
Kerosene is a type of fuel, and you have the lamp with the wick.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. They discovered
candle.
kerosene in about 1870 or so when Stolmeyer had a lease on the Pitch Lake, and he got kerosene. Before that, what did he use as fuel?
Oh, I really don't know. You got me there. This is why I'm filming the show.
Shark. They had oil, like shark oil.
Right, shark oil, whale oil, those kind of
oil.
things.
They didn't have, and then they discovered kerosene. And I'm saying the person who discovered kerosene was Stolmeyer.
He discovered it down here?
He came from Germany. And then went to the States for a while. I guess that's also in my book. Went to Germany.
As in Stolmeyer discovered kerosene worldwide, or just
no? Let me take. I ain't going worldwide now. It might be. I don't know. I don't think so. No, it's from the Pitch Lake. It's from the Pitch Lake. It's on the pitch. It's a residue.
So he would have been the first person to really recognize what the significance of that pitch lake was.
Well, he had a big. I mean, they were thinking of exporting pitch and all that, and he had a concession on the Pitch Lake. And the governor friendly, and so had a concession, and one of the byproducts was the question of pitch, PITC, as in pitch, asphalt, pitch oil. And he's the one who not discovered it, but through his industrial whatever, he discovered pitch oil.
Right, we would have known what it was when he.
Well, I mean, they would do the experiments. I don't know. They might discover it could burn, and it could burn over a certain amount of time. And if you put it in the light, and they put that true discovery. I'm saying, so he's the one who discovered pitch oil. But before there was the whale oil, which he used to burn. So that's how we sort of grew up here. And all around was cane. Even down the road, this block here, the next block had a cane field.
Yeah, well, that's why I guess they have cane farm up the road.
Cane farm. Well, they were all cane farm and Paradise, El Dorado, Macoya. They were all sugar estates. They were all sugar estates before Paradise. Before they sort of collapsed into the Orange Grove sugar estate, the Trinidad sugar estates under Burnley, and so of course they then came together. But it was just a number. All of these were sugarcane estates because where the sugar grown, flat, undulating lands. What is our main product then? Sugarcane. We didn't have no oil. So the whole place was planted up with sugarcane.
So what did Burnley do? Did he buy out the farms around him?
Not the plantations. Some went out of business. He bought up some of them and so on. And some of it it's like what's happening in the farms in the States. Some become uneconomical. And of course, remember what happens with pitch and even oil. pitch, sugars, even oil, when the prices, there was a big sugar tariff that the British put on in 1846, which meant that they paid a lot of money to get the sugar out, and so a lot of collapsing of the sugar estates and so on. But Burnley was very astute about that. He had the most money. He came here with the most money, so he was able to buy it or take what do you have on lands? Not warranties. When you buy a piece of land and you have to pay for it, how do you call it?
Mortgage.
Mortgages. He bought a lot of the mortgage from those guys, and he became the biggest man.
Wow. So after going to school here, you went to school in New York, I think it was?
Okay. After I went to school here, and I went to the primary school.
Right.
Because of my leg injury, which I got in the orphan home. By the way, the orphan was 1857. Burnley's son, William Frederick Burnley, built that with a fellow called Eccles for the kids who, the Kalapani was the dark river, according to the Hindus. And so those people coming from Calcutta and Madrasi, when their parents died, they put up that home there. Right, of course, it was called the Coolie Home. Wow. That was the name of it. And then, of course, they gradually changed it to Taggart Orphan Home now, the St. Mary's Children.
I don't think you're allowed to call it that anymore.
And if you're allowed to, I know what I mean by allowed to. If I'm writing, you have to say what it was called.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't see any buildings with that name on it.
No, you wouldn't see, but I'm talking about that time. I mean, when they were seeing
it's amazing to see where we came from.
Yeah. They're caused by the N-word. And so the kids who went there and so on. And Burnley, of course, son, William, he never came back after his father died in 1850. He never came back home. He stayed abroad in Scotland. And of course, and so I went to, I got an injury at the orphan home playing football or something like that. So then I went on to become a monitor. That's before long ago. There were very few school places. For example, in 1960, there were only 1,000 free school places. Secondary school places. In 55, when I would have been finished school, there were probably no more than about 200 free secondary school places.
Wow.
So what you did, you had a system called the pupil teacher system, where you became a monitor, and you began to teach in the classes.
And in front.
You began to teach in the classes, and then, of course, you become an assistant professor, teacher, and then, of course, you then do comprehensives, and then you go to a government training college. At the age of 18, I taught Taggart, then I went to Point Fountain EC for a year, and then I came back to Europe EC for a year, and then I decided to go away. I went away to New York. In New York, I spent a year at high school at a place called Borough Academy.
This is around what year? Around 65?
64.
64.
Well, yeah, I left here in 64. And I went to Borough Academy from 64 to 65 because I had to get American history and science before I could enter university. In 65, I entered St. John's University.
Wait, you were in New York at this time?
Yes, I left here in 64.
So wouldn't this be around the same time as like the Black Power movement?
So Black Power would be 69.
Oh, okay.
Black Power would be 64.
But that would be back when what year was Malcolm X?
65.
Right. So
I got there in August of 64, and in 1965, February of 65, Malcolm was assassinated.
Wow.
Yeah, of course, I met Stokely Carmichael, who's the one who talked about Black Power in the States. At the in fact, I think it's the very same place where Malcolm was killed, the Audubon Ballroom. I met Stokely. So those days, it was just firing up. And of course, in 65 or 66, I think Stokely being, what's his name, Kwame Ture, talked about Black Power. And in 1969, in Trinidad, the Black Power movement. But that was already in the States.
So that directly influenced Trinidad?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah. Not just Trinidad, the whole world. I mean, Steve Biko in South Africa, he had the Black Consciousness movement. But it was a time when black folks were becoming aware of themselves. It comes on the heels of the Civil Rights Movement, which begins in 45 in the States. And it came up to this, if you're looking now at that big subpoena that's going on in Congress and all that kind of stuff.
No, that movement in 45 that occurred in the States, would that have been due to how the blacks were treated when they fought in World War II?
Huh?
Would that have been influenced by how the blacks were treated by Britain in World War II?
Because you see, you don't ask me to go and fight in World War II and I got to kill the Japs and the Germans and everybody else, and when I come back home, I'm still a second-class citizen.
Yeah, not just that, but the Britons weren't racist towards them.
The Britons?
Yeah, the British, they didn't used to segregate their troops, and they actually had, I forget where it was. but they actually had a firefight broke out between the American Army, White Army, was shooting the British and the Black American Army because they were congregating, and they had the Black American soldiers fraternizing with the white British women.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
And they were very against that. And when they told the British that they had to segregate their bars and stuff, right? What some of the British did, they put up a sign saying blacks only.
Is that right?
Yeah, and of course all the white British will go in like normal because they don't have a problem.
Yeah.
So the white Americans ended up segregating themselves out of the establishments that they wanted segregated.
Interesting. I don't know that. Yeah. Thanks for that.
That actually ended up culminating, reaching a climax when they had a firefight with American troops firing on their friendly British and American people. I am aware of that. Yeah, so it's interesting stuff.
So I was there, 65. You have the passage of the Civil Rights Act, I think. Mm-hmm. The Civil Rights Act is 65 under Johnston. Then you have the other act that comes up, and then I got back here in 60. Then I got back here in 68 for just on vacation for the summer. And then 69, I began the marches with Daga and those guys begin to take place.
All right, so you would have been in those marches with Daga?
I didn't join the marches. I would view it because I would come just sporadically and I would see it, but I would not have been participating in it. I wouldn't be here. I was just here for the summer. The summer of, say, I think 68. That's the year before I graduated.
So how would this have influenced you on a personal level?
Well, it influenced me in the sense that when you're in Trinidad growing up, you're not aware of your blackness.
Yeah, because clearly now you're very for black empowerment.
Yeah.
You know, so was it around this time that you started, awakened to it and started realizing that, this is the purpose that I must.
Well, you don't do it quite, this is my purpose, but I'm saying while you're growing up, you're not aware of your blackness. You know you're black, but when everybody blackness don't mean anything. When everybody blackness don't mean nothing. So we're all black, but when you go to the States, and people begin to treat you differently, you can't get a job because you're black. I worked at Fordham, and I was a student at Fordham University, and they had on the board, openings at Macy for students, university students. And I go get a job, and they said, "Who are you?" I said, "Well, I come Fordham, and so you had jobs." "Oh, that's all right." And so I take the test, and I come back. It was overflown. They said that I was overqualified. So you go somebody to throw the money at you. You're accustomed to that here. Even at something as a haircut. The first haircut I got, I was on Flatbush Avenue. I went to get in 64 or so. And it was an Italian barber. They couldn't cut my hair. They were cutting it up and cutting it up. So I know they started going to look for a black barber. Yeah, because the white guys could. I'm sure they could do it now, but I'm saying then they couldn't cut and wouldn't cut black hair. So all those made you aware of your blackness, even at school. How they would treat you. When I went to St. John, or probably Fordham, there were only about 20 black students in the whole school. So we began to fight for more black students. And then I came up in 1969. They wanted to have black studies because they were teaching nothing that was black in the schools. So that we began now to fight for black studies, and that's how I became an instructor in black studies. And of course, it was a growing sense and growing awareness of your blackness. And of course, that would lead to other kinds of stuff.
So what made you focus on history most of all?
I didn't do history so much, they make that mistake all the time in the advertisements. I only did literature.
Right, that's true. You got your bachelor's in literature.
And so I got my PhD in literature. In point of fact, I did American literature for my sort of general, if we used to call it comprehensives. And I wrote on Caribbean literature for my thesis. At that time, nobody was teaching Caribbean literature. In point of fact, I was lucky to have studied with George Lamming. He had come to Cornell, myself, George Lamming, Trevor Farrell, the brother of Terence Farrell. We were together at Cornell. And George came and we studied literature. And then, of course, I got more interest in literature. And as I went along, and I began doing my literature, I sort of recognized that to understand the literature, you had to understand the history. So I began to study history and do a lot of work in that. And then I've always been interested in my own village and my own country. So then I began to do more work I got interested in C.L.R. James, so I did a lot of work. Then Eric Williams, who did a lot of work. And then V.S. Naipaul, who I wrote a book on and so on. And I began to focus more on the Caribbean, particularly Trinidad. My first book was Resistance and Caribbean Literature. But then I began to become much more narrow and focus on Trinidad. And that became kind of my hobby horse. Now, the great thing, and it just worked out that way, I hadn't planned it that way. The thing about my last book, or the last book I wrote, is that it focused on Burnley, but he was an internationalist. Born in England, born in America, lived in England, traveled Europe, came down here, became big. So when following his career, I had to expand my horizons in terms of, so that's a biography. As a biography, you had to do a lot of history to locate him in history. So it called a lot of archival research to understand the guy.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's mostly by chance that you just got so focused on history.
Yeah, well, by chance, and well, if you want to call it by chance.
By chance and just, I guess, natural
But
influence.
what I mean, as I said,
forgive
me, I said, for example, I got very, like in 1984, for example, I wrote a book on Tagarigua because I think it was the 400th anniversary or something like that. And I mean, you research.
The 400th anniversary of Tagarigua?
Yeah. I have a book called, either 400 or 300, I have a book called Tagarigua, a village in Trinidad, in which I outline that history. And then I discovered, as I was researching, that was really piqued my interest in Burnley. I was researching on Tagarigua. And then I saw an article written by a fellow called James Norman Lamont. One of Lamonts, but if Burnley was the biggest slaveholder, then James or John Lamont was the second biggest holder. And I discovered his nephew, his grandnephew, wrote a very small piece in 1837 for the Trinidad Historical Review on William Burnley, just about 20 pages. And what blew my mind, that after slavery ended, when slavery ended in 1834, of course, they paid the slave masters, not the slaves.
Yeah, that was the closest we got to reparations.
Yes.
They reparated the slave masters and not the slaves.
Paid them big bucks, sorry. They got their money from the Rothschild, borrowed from the Rothschild. But what I was interested in, he got the most money. And then after slavery, he began to make more money still. So I have a piece called Slavery, Colonialism, Independence, Same Khaki Pants. So in fact, even the he got money for the slaves, he make more money after that, so he keep on making money. But when I got that, I saw that I became interested in Burnley. And when I was growing up, Burnley's mansion was in Orange Grove, Savannah. I knew the mansion.
Wait, so that was where Orange Grove Savannah is right now? That is where it was?
Yeah. Right very close to the Etihad, that's Pavilion.
Yes.
To your south, just really south, is where you'll see two roads, which you didn't realize, and people don't realize. There used to be, when I again was growing up, there were two roads going to Orange Grove. The very big road, which is now...
The road to the highway.
That road on Orange Grove, when it come out from, say, Orange Grove to the highway, come out to Orange Grove by the church. There's a big road. There's also a smaller road.
That is the road that goes left? Or the road that goes straight?
But they all merge into one now. But there used to be two roads.
Oh, okay.
One that goes just below you see the salmon tree?
Yes,
there are 8 salmon trees or 6 salmon trees right down from there's only one now. When I did my documentary, I cut down the second one, so I have the second one cutting down in my documentary. There were like 6 salmon trees right to Burnley's home. There's a second gate because you had the railway. Now you have the priority.
Right.
You had a big gate for the railway. There's also a small gate at the side that ran at the side, starting from the Orange Grove and went right behind Eddie Hart Pavilion. You know where they had to sell the food and thing now? One road goes through and make a right, and there's one that we keep going. Now they have it in the park, but they go straight down into Burnley's home. And that was Burnley home. I grew up seeing the house. It was a big house. A big house. In fact, it was almost as big as the governor's house. In fact, he had one more window than the governor, which is 101 windows. And no one could have more windows than the governor, so you had to close down one. But I remember seeing the house. Now, growing up, I didn't know what the house was. But again, in light of black power, in light of Marxism and radicalism and so on, I realized that was Burnley's house. That was a slave master house. This land here we rented from Burnley, from the estates. This land right here.
Wow. You were ever able to trace his lineage to the present, to find out like where his descendants are?
Oh no, that was a bit difficult. I was able to trace the son, who died in about, I guess, early in the century. He never came back here. That's William. He went bankrupt. And the other son who went to diplomatic service. Now, there are records of the son's children, but wasn't able to trace them. No. That's a bit much for me. I mean, these things get so broad. I was really simply interested in recording Burns' life. That was my big thing.
Oh, that was your aim. So, one question. How aware do you think we are of our history, especially our youth?
None at all.
Yeah, and what do you think is that effect that will have on our cultural
the effect?
identity?
Well, not forget, you don't know who you are. You don't know who you are. But if you don't know who you are, it's like a rock or a breeze or a leaf in the wind, because nothing to hold you down, nothing to give you a sense of who you are. And I think that's what's happening right now. We don't know who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, especially with social media, where now, well, I don't think you're, I see you on Twitter, but I don't think you're on Instagram or any of those.
Well, I guess I think I'm on Facebook, but I'm not.
Yeah, well, believe me, I actually quit all social media a few years ago, and only because of this I'm starting to get back into it.
Oh.
And I feel like I'm, from a past generation or something, trying to make sense of what's going on.
Yes, that's a really good statement.
But on Instagram right now, the thing is, it's very easy for some people to get. Actually, no, that's a bad statement. But if you have a lot of followers on Instagram, it's a lot easier to get more. Well, that's not just Instagram. That's all social media.
I'm not on Instagram, but I should probably get on Instagram.
Yeah, but you see, the thing with social media now is that basically the popularity is determined by the followers. Whereas before, like if a show was on a popular TV station, that would have a lot of effect on the popularity. Mm-hmm. Now it's more democratic, if you like it that way. But a lot of people, not just in Trinidad, worldwide in general, I find are followers. They don't want to jump on something until it's popular. So if they see something popular, everybody jump on it.
Okay.
And the effect they're having is that obviously the biggest social media accounts with the biggest followings would be from like the US. Okay. Because they just have a population that's 200 times the size of ours.
Yeah.
And you do have... You will have people that are even more amazing locally and nobody following them because they don't see anybody else following them. And anytime, you following something, the reason you're following it is so that you could feel some sort of connection to the people around you that following the same thing. But why am I going to follow somebody from Trinidad that have 1,000 followers that nobody else know about when I could follow somebody from... Australia or the States that have 2 million followers, something like that.
Yeah, I was wondering about that,
Yeah, so, well, that's one of the purposes of this show is that I want to shine a spotlight on our local people and say, listen, all the inspiration we need, all the knowledge we need is just right here. We just need to look for it.
Well, it takes guys like you to do that,
Yeah, so I'm very glad I'm very happy that you sat down,
Yeah.
I know this initial podcast might reach 5 people.
Doesn't matter. You're going to send me one of them and we'll know exactly where we are.
Yeah.
And I'll send it. Once you'll send it to me.
Yes, I'll email you the links.
And I'll send the link on to one of my students in the States and she would do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'll also start promoting your blog because when I started looking up your stuff online, I came across your blog. And I mean, I just find it interesting. I guess now I have that.
Yeah. Well, I could do that. That'd be great. That's great. That'd be great.
Well, what I'm doing as well is that I'm going to focus mostly on local people.
Yeah.
Right? Because I just want other trainees to see what I see, which is that, listen,
beautiful.
We have all the inspiration we need in our people right here. Like, we don't need to go outside. Let's just build our own first,
That is beautiful. I mean, I think that's really admirable. And that's how things happen. Each new, Fanon once says, each generation has its own task to fulfill. Mm-hmm. Each generation has its own task to fulfill. Your grandfather was independence. My mother was independence. Now you guys, you have an independence, you have a country. Now you have to do your other tasks through the use of social media to get the second phase out, to let people know about their country. So if you could do, and of course there are links with other countries because people came from all over, China, India, Africa. So it helps you also. Your task is to sort of get a different sensibility, create a different and new sensibility among our young people.
Yeah, just to get them not just following but thinking.
Yeah.
And I just need them to realize that we have a lot to offer to this world. We need to start looking to ourselves.
Well, I'm always available. You want to talk about anything? I'm always here. But I'm here. I mean, even though I'll be here next 2 years, I'll be more permanent. I'll be settling down. But I'm always available.
Yeah. So one of the things I realized that really started giving me actually, I don't know where this sudden thirst for history came from, right? But one of the things that I realized why I never was interested in history growing up is that I felt the history taught us in secondary school was more about, all the times we were beaten. It was like, oh, you were slaves of the Spanish.
Oh,
and then you were slaves of the English. And then oh well, Britain got fed up and it just told you all, take independence. So you don't want to learn about all the times you got beaten.
Extraordinary position.
You need to learn about sometimes where you're victorious. So do you know any stories that you could share from our history where we fought and we were victorious?
Yes, I mean, again, if you go back to my book again, Slave Master. The notion, I think I know where I saw it, but the notion that somehow we were given this thing and we were slaves, but the indentures and certainly the blacks took their own initiative. I mean, they were sitting, if you go again to my book, I go to different estates, people in fact were fighting. They burned down places in El Dorado and Mocoya because they said we want to be free. They didn't just sit down and say, okay, no. And they've always been fighting the big wars that you had, of course, in the Hussey riots, which happened in 1884, when the Indians got together and said, we're going to march and so on and so forth. You had the Butler riots, where they said, we're going to get our wages and so on. You got the drum riots in Aruca around 9. So these people have always been fighting. As you said, though, the unfortunate thing is we never highlight.
Yeah, we highlight all the times we were beaten.
Yes, I can see that's a very interesting point.
So that's why after Form 3, I did not want to learn about history because I was like, listen, I'm not somebody to be beaten.
Yeah.
And I could make a better contribution elsewhere. And that's why I focused on sciences.
No, well, I think
but getting back into no, we have so much to offer.
There's so much. I mean, I'm saying, if you're from Tagarigua, look at my book. And you'll be able to identify in places like Aruca, Tagarigua.
Yeah, definitely going to get a copy.
Mocoya, even Laurel Hill. In fact, somebody asked me yesterday, I went to the school, I can remember 5 Rivers. Wasn't 5 Rivers, it was Laurel Hill. Before Millhome, Millhome bought it out. So that was a loyal, and they have all the things that folks fighting. But the thing about it, which again, they were wrong about it, is the fighting is not only physical. Struggle and resistance is not only people fighting and taking up a gun or using a cutlass. People, by maintaining their culture, like their dances, the Shango, the Bel Air, the stick fights, they maintain their own culture. So they're also what I call in one of my first books, cultural resistance. They kept their dances.
So I think that's what we need to get a revitalization of right now. We need to revitalize our cultural resistance.
But we ought to know about it. I mean, you know about it now. You could talk. There will be new forms, but I want to get back to your point that you always talk about being beaten as a slave, etc., etc., etc. Nobody ever talks about the will be used about the agency of the enslaved and the indenters. They fought like hell.
Yeah, all you hear is that slavery was abolished. And
they don't teach it right, and they don't know it. Like I'm reading right now and researching a guy who was a guy from Barbados. His name is Douglin. His son became the Bishop of Trinidad and Tobago. Douglin was born in Barbados, went to Carlson College, then went to Sierra Leone, where he worked among to evangelize the blacks, and then came here as the major priest at St. Clement's. And when in fact Sylvester Williams, who was the head of the Pan-Africanist movement, who was born in Aruca, went to London and formed this whole Pan-Africanist movement to free all black people all over the world. He came back here to begin to work for him. No, nobody knows about that. We don't talk about it. We don't know about it. In fact, the same guy I talked about, Stanley, who I talked about that house being broken down. I'm also writing about his history. I did a lot of research on him. I knew who he is. And he was very important to the village. kids don't even know. So he'll break the damn house and we'll go down and he would be out of history. Nobody know a thing about him. But these are the guys who fought and struggled to keep us going where we are right now. Who trained, I mean, that was cultural history. But there's also socioeconomic history, where, for example, had strikes and would simply break their work, their hose, and to work less and held back on their labor. They fought in different kinds of ways. Struggle is not only physical, it's also spiritual, it's also cultural, it's also social.
I think what we need is probably a book on Trinidadian and Tobago historical resistance, where it just highlights
Those
all the times that we resisted whatever was trying to overpower us.
But my first book is on resistance, Caribbean resistance, talking about different struggles among the people against their oppressors. And that's why I started. But then, of course, it get.
Yeah, well, what I'll do when I post up this on my website and stuff, I will put links to your things. I know you have your own website, so I could link to that.
Yeah,
so
you
people
link
can see
but you put up your whole thing. I know how active
stuff.
that website is and so on. But nice.
It's not active yet, but I mean,
you can help doing that.
yeah, I don't need it to be active for me to be active on it.
All right,
So,
good.
yeah, I build in something and I start in it now. So
That's good.
this is just the pebble rolling down the hill.
Yeah, no, I'm very appreciative of this, man. Very proud of you.
Actually, so while we're on the topic of, I guess, victorious moments of local culture, I came across a short documentary recently done by I think it's the U.S. Embassy, where they were talking about the Americans.
The Americans, yes.
Yeah, the Americans of Moruga. And I have no idea why we would never taught this in school. I thought that was so interesting.
But even Manning's wife was American.
Yes. This guy, Brent Sancho, the footballer, is American as well.
I know how it happened. In the 1812 war in the States, I think it was probably New Orleans, that the slaves joined the British.
Yeah, because the British, it was just a way for them to get more people on their side.
That's the fight. They fight in a war, whoever you get, and the slaves said, okay, if I could fight, and I would be victorious. But they lost, and they sent them to Trinidad.
Well, actually, before they went Trinidad, they went Bermuda.
Yeah.
And I think it was Cochrane had the initial agreement with them. And the British Navy actually tried to renegotiate their contract, right, to get them to stay on with the army because they were such good fighters.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we wanted our freedom. And that is how they ended up getting sent to Trinidad. And the governor of Trinidad at the time sent them to the furthest point away because he still had slaves there. Yeah, so he sent them to the middle of the southern tip,
Not the southern, they went up, I think, Manzanilla.
Yeah, well, they landed in Moruga.
Yeah,
it was 6 companies, and that's why I still have the company roads.
6 companies, yes.
Yeah.
No, those are things that nobody knows about.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful story of how we just overcame all obstacles, and they just stuck together through discipline and hard work, built an entire community. That's here today.
The first
200 years later.
The first Muslims were not the Indians, but the blacks who came as slaves. They're the first Muslims up in Manzanilla. And the fact of the matter is, the priests from Tagarigua had to go up there and sort of work with them and so on. And we got stories about that too. So, it's very much an important part of the story.
Yeah, I just wish these things were taught more when you're young.
I think we could do more of these kinds of, we could go into more specifics. We could take a half an hour or so and talk about a specific person or specific era or specific revolt and so on. If you read my book, there would be episodes you want to talk about, and then we could talk more about it.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely interested in the Slave Master of Trinidad.
Yeah,
I tried getting a copy.
And what happened?
No, well, I just went to the local library, but they don't have the copies as yet because it's a fairly recent book.
The library don't have any copies. You have to get one from. You ordered? You went to which library you went to?
Well, I work in San Fernando, so I went to the San Fernando library.
And what did you ask them?
For the Slave Master of Trinidad.
And what did they say?
0 copies. They say 0 copies in the country.
You can not in the company, but in Nallis didn't buy any copies.
Yeah. 0 copies in all of Nallis. They have a lot of the other books though.
Yes.
But
the Slave Master didn't get
the problem with the San Fernando library is that I think they're renovating the old one. So they just grabbed a bunch of books and moved it across this temporary location. So the guy was like, listen, even if we say we have, your book on file, I'm not sure if I go upstairs I'll find it. So
What a country. All right, my
yeah.
man. Well, thanks so much. And let's keep it going.
So I was just thinking we need to get more stories showing our resistance and our triumphs, and we need to get it taught when we're at a younger, more impressionable
Yeah,
age, before
yeah.
we turn off of our history
Yeah.
and turn off of our culture and think our culture is just jumping up and whining.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. We don't even know what culture is. It's not just winding, it's a way of life. It's how
Yeah.
people organize their lives. That's what it is.
But the thing is, we have a nice culture down here. I mean,
Well, not this. I mean, it's exciting.
yeah,
It's
in
exciting.
some areas it's nice.
It's exciting, but we never do anything. We never do anything on it.
Yeah, it's sort of like a naturally occurring culture
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
don't promote.
And ours is different because of the sort of multicultural dimension of the culture.
Yeah, so we were forced to be tolerant
Yes,
before
yes,
tolerance is a
yes,
thing,
yeah.
which is a beautiful thing, you know, that we need to hold
There's
on
a book,
to.
if you ever get it, which is, you get it in the libraries, I'm sure, on Trinidad, written in 1867, I think. I'd give you the author as I go along. And what he has done, he's told you, I mean, the amount of different cultures and language. I think it's called The History of Trinidad. You know, I'll get it for you. It's my other book called my book on Beyond Boundaries. And this guy, from as early as 1867, he's seen about 15 different languages and culture and things. And of course, so your notion of tolerance is a very important point. Because not so much also tolerance, well, yes, tolerance, but we learn to live with each other.
Yeah.
We learn to live with each other. So that became very important.
So you are also you're the founder of the National Association
Yes,
for
something
Empowerment
called-
of
yes,
African
but it's
people.
not active right now. But we didn't get the assistance. But yes, about I don't know, around 1990 or so, we formed this organization to talk about the empowerment of African people, promote black things and so on. Did very well for about 10 years, but we never got the assistance.
Yeah, no, I know there's some people that, you know, through your fight for African empowerment, they call you racist. Right? Okay. I think Satmaraj had alluded to it now and then, but just to clear the air between racism and empowerment, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think racism is the want for, I guess, your group of people to triumph at the detriment of those around you. Whereas where you were fighting for empowerment, you were saying, listen, blacks and Africans in Trinidad need to empower themselves, make themselves better from within, not to the detriment of those around them, but so in the end they will be in a better position to help those around them and contribute more to society. Yeah, so I think anybody that comes across this, you need to keep that difference in mind, you know?
But you mean, racism is where you act in a very negative way towards other people. In other words, when you say in the South, or say American racism is how they treat other people. But to do that, you have to have power. If you got no power, you can't treat nobody anyhow. Indians can talk about power, French can talk about blacks can't, because they don't have the kind of wealth in terms of jobs and so on. But apart from simply the power dimension, there's also a pride dimension. That black were never proud of themselves. You couldn't wear African clothes. I mean, you've seen that now. You couldn't wear African clothes. They thought they would go back to the jungle. So at a certain point in our history, we looked on everything black and African. And we were saying, well, look up. I went to an African film festival last night. They buried, I think, a guy called Cudjoe. My name, but K-O-J rather than C-U-D-J-O-E. And they're talking about all the beautiful images of Africa, because everybody always told our story. They never told the story of the others. And whenever they told our story, they told it through the eyes of the other. So it was very important for us to tell our own story. And of course, to recognize our links and connections with the home country. And that's what we're talking about. But it was not at the expense of anyone else. So to be pro-black doesn't mean you have to be pro-racist. It means being pro-self. Yeah, so every group was, so that's what we were talking about.
Right. So being pro-black is just more about preserving your culture, the same way everybody else preserve their culture.
So, for example, in the Chinese, they have their own Chinese association. They got the Portuguese association. Because folks recognize, I mean, it's just a natural human instinct. People come together to preserve their own. And once you do that, you can live with others. It doesn't mean you have to be against. I mean, if you look at my house, we have there the Indians, in the back Hindus, in the back Muslims. So we live together all the time.
Yeah, but there's also, especially in Trinidad, there's a beauty in making sure your culture is preserved, because
right.
you don't want to just lose it.
Yeah,
into
because
the,
as I said, if you lose it,
obscurity
you're
of
nothing.
history.
You're nothing. Without your history, you're nothing. One of the reasons, for example, why the Hindus, the Indians have been so important, they've had their culture, they've had their religion. And that's been a very powerful element in their progress.
Yeah,
because
because
they share common values.
Yeah, because if you look at most of our results for national tests like common entrance, CXC, A-levels, most times is Hindus that either on top or near the top, because they have a strong sense of
But it wasn't always that
identity
way.
and self.
It wasn't always that way.
Really?
It wasn't always that way. I mean, the time when the Indian girls didn't go to school. I lived in Tagani, working in Orange Grove. The men walked in front, the women walked behind. It's only with the building of the Mahasabah schools in 1953 that they began to rise. But before, everything was just simply black teachers, black everything. So when they began to build the Mahasabah schools under Badisagan Maraj, that of course it changed the but up until that time, the dominant force or the educational force were blacks, not Indians. So that changed in time, which is of course another lesson you learn: nothing remains static.
Yeah. If you especially these days, if you stay stagnant for 5 years, that's it.
Everything changes.
Yeah.
So that's where that is. So the question is, I mean, you could do a big book about why that change took place, which I'm not going to get into right now. But the fact is, it hasn't always been so. That's my point.
So one thing I was always curious about, so you were fighting for the empowerment of blacks and Africans, and this is in the 1990s, right? But we got independence in 1962, and between 1962 and 1990, we were basically exclusively led by black prime ministers.
Yeah.
So
what happened?
what happened? Why wasn't more done to make blacks empowered by then with 30 years of black leadership?
Eric Williams talked about, I mean, remember, Rich, you want to talk about, we talk a bit about history, but the second thing to understand about history is process, not stasis. Things change. When Williams came here, the power was not about blacks or Indians, but about independence, because your colonial state run by Britain. Blacks didn't have any positions. It was run by an executive committee. It was all white-led. We had no power. We didn't even go to school. In fact, we could only vote. The first blacks and locals who got to participate in the league to be voted for was 1925. In 1846, first universal adult suffrage in 1846. When you could vote. Before that, you couldn't vote. Or very few. You had to sit in kinds of qualities. In 1955, when Williams came and so on, you have now, for the first time, you have parties and so on. And so Williams becomes the prime minister. His object is not to empower black people, Indian people. It's to empower the whole country. Because you've been a colonial force. In 1995 or 1955, you have the very powerful move, the Bandung Conference in Indonesia, where black and brown people come together to demand their freedom and their liberation. That's the move, not just black or Indian. So when Williams came, it wasn't to empower blacks, it was to empower all of us. That was the idea. So Williams have no sense of just blackness. However, in so doing, that's why he had black power. Because even though he had independence, black people could still work at the banks. It was still a white thing. So that's why he had black power in 1969, 70.
Yeah, because that is something that I could just never wrap my head around. We had a black prime minister that got our independence, and then we still had black power movements in 1969.
Yes. Because remember, get history's process, and contradictions are the law of life. There's always be a contradiction. I have got students, for example, who are at women's college. They're feminist, but they go and look at this guy Brown who slapped Rihanna. So I said, well, how could you feminist, Chris Brown slap Rihanna? I still wanted to see Chris Brown. He said, well, Professor, because we're not listening to Chris Brown, we want to hear the music. A contradiction.
Yeah, so they separate the artist from the music.
But I'm saying that's a contradiction. So even though Williams, of course, represented the movement towards empowerment and so on, he didn't pay particular attention to black people, even though that was his base. So and how was that manifested? Blacks didn't own banks. They couldn't work at banks. They were in control. And black folks says, listen, what's going on here? We're in power when we have nothing. And so then that's when they revolted, of course. I said it takes place in conjunction with what's happening in the United States. But that was the whole power around the world, that black folks and Indian folks and brown folks need to be empowered. So then there's a further entrenchment, of the fight for black independence. So it was not country, but it was country in the sense that, and of course loyalists would say that they were Afro-Saxon. Even though they were black, they possessed a lot of European values.
Yeah, because they were basically ruled by the British and the Europeans for so long that
But not even ruled, they went to school. They went to school. I mean, what schooling is? Schooling gives you values and culture. Not just ABC and so on,
Yeah, that's the soft curriculum.
Yeah, but when I went to school, you had the first always religious knowledge, where you inculcate values. So in 1954, my sister, born in, I think, 53 or something like 55. When Princess Margaret came down to Trinidad, we were given little flags to go wave flags because we were subjects of the crown. She came down the MP Road. We used to call it the MP Road, the Beetham, whatever. Not the Beetham, the Churchill Roosevelt. We had wave flags and they gave us some little buns. But what the British were good at is get into your head. So when you have all of those values, you just can't drop it because you got independence. That's the big fight.
Yeah, you basically have those, you basically indoctrinated with those prejudices.
Got your head. That's all I need.
Yeah.
You marry a woman, all she needs a woman's head. She marry you, she needs your head. You can say what you want to say. Once I ain't got your head. So anyhow, so there were a lot of us were still under the British value systems, you want to call it that. And so the fight for independence became a long fight because you have people still carrying the old, like I say, old media and social media. A lot of us, I know guys who still go in the mornings at 6 o'clock, buy the 3 papers and read them. I still get the 3 papers, but the young people are reading that.
Yeah, I don't know anybody my age reading newspapers.
That's what I'm saying. So that's the different.
I don't know anybody my age that watches the 7 o'clock news. I'm sure we have some out there, but in my circle.
But what you're saying is exactly what I'm saying. It changes. So even though they had independence, and they're going to take a good 10, 15 years because everybody gets off of that and have the read and social calm. So that was what was happening there. And then in 60 you have the Black Power thing and more empowered and so on. And you keep on going. And of course that movement itself spans its time until you have the takeover. Was it 1980 when you have the takeover of Abu Bakr or whatever?
1989, July. It's 1989.
But then you had Shah before. You had Shah before. That was during the Black Power thing. And then you have, so it's always, there's that progress because people we are saying independence, but people are not getting the benefit of it. It doesn't matter whether you have a black government or a pink government or a white government. When you got money, you won't have a job. Maybe you'll get food for your kids.
Yeah.
So the blackness has nothing to do with it. What are the results? And when people are fed up, they're going to rise up.
So where do you see our where do you see our African and black youth today? Do you think they're in a better position than they were when you started your organization, or in a worse position?
I think they're in a worse position.
And what do you think they need to do or need to learn for them to
education.
But education in what? Just general education or education in their history?
Studies in their history. They're saying what happens is that you go to school. First of all, the teachers today, I think, are not as dedicated as teachers in my time. For one, two, you have a big, tremendous influence of social media and cable news and videos and so on. And that's why what you're doing is so important. We don't have a lot of local. I've just given the prize to my school, my primary school, to give them a year where they talk about local matters. We don't talk about local matters. We see no virtue in nothing local.
Yeah, because I think.
No, what I'm saying, but you're saying how. So what happens?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's just because the local stuff could just never be as popular because we only have 1.3, 1.4 million.
It doesn't matter
people
the
here.
number. The number is not important. It's your curriculum and your goals. And so, for example, I'm just saying I want to move on to one more important point. I think is that when kids leave school at 3:00, what do they go home and fall? They're all black youth, right? And fall into all kind of mischief. What would happen if you had about 20 or 50 educational culture, handicraft, whatever, from 3 to 6 throughout the country, where kids could go learn something, learn a language, play some basketball, do some acting, because they begin to use up their energies. We don't have any programs to deal with that.
Oh, worse yet, we have some programs, and because remember we had the life sport program. And
Yeah.
I think millions was lost in that.
But I'm
that
saying,
was a
no
big
life,
scandal.
but that was not
Yeah.
serious. I'm not talking about people that just want to rip you off.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in terms of you asking me how do you deal with black folk and these black youth. Not life sport. I mean, not even life sport.
I think what we need most of all are people that care more
Yes.
about their country and their society than lining their own pockets.
I
And I
agree.
think that's what we lack in, especially in a lot of the more powerful offices.
I agree with you totally.
I'm sure we have good people in up there. I'm sure we have those honest politicians that just got into to try to make Trinidad better. But the fact is, we have a lot of bad ones. I mean, we can't
They get corrupted.
deny that
They get
fact,
corrupted.
yeah.
That's why I see in these views in terms of cultural institutions, where you say that money is not the only thing that maketh the man, that character and values and virtues. Why are you doing this? You could have 5 followers, but it's something you want to do. When I write a book, me showing people to buy a book, 500 people buy the book. I mean, all right, okay, it's done worldwide. But I'm doing it not because of who won't buy it, because something I'm impassioned about. It takes you all over the world to do research, but I like it. I'm committed to it. And hopefully others will get in. I met somebody, for example, last night at the showing of this African film festival. She likes the work. She's from El Dorado. They're doing some Antarctica, but she likes my work. So there's 1 or 2 people, but there they become the seeds. Once you sow those seeds, you don't know what's going to happen. But your only obligation is to do your work. And I don't think we have a notion of the importance of work and labor. It's a moneyed culture. It's not what you do. It's not what you how you do it. It's not how much you have, but how good you are. So you've got to change the value system. And I think that's what everybody wants to move in town and get that big house and get that big car.
Yeah, I guess the value system now is just money based.
The value
It's not really based on what are you producing,
The
you know?
value system. And that's what you're doing. Like what you're doing here is so important. Like what you're doing here is
You
so
know, like your books, so much more important than half the job somebody getting $50,000 a month to do, you know?
and let them get the money. I mean,
Yeah, but it's like we're not rewarding the people that really contribute to the most to us because we're driven mostly by profit. I mean, I'm not downcrying capitalism because I understand.
Well, it has its good points.
It has its good
points.
good
So you
and
want to downcry the bad points of it.
Yeah.
It becomes very selfish. The bank makes billions and the poor ain't got nothing. So that's I would
Yeah,
decry.
yeah.
I would decry it. I wouldn't be ashamed to say I decry it.
Yeah.
So so that's what we're trying to do. Hope it happens. So we got to keep on working.
Yeah, right now my thing is that I think the struggle of this coming decade, if not this century, is going to be less about race and more about class. Because you have a rising inequality not just in the States but around the world, and we feeling it, you know. I saw just yesterday there was an economist did I should really pull it up before I started this. But there's an economist that did it. It was in, I think, either Guardian or Express yesterday on their Twitter feed. Where he was saying that the Venezuelans coming in going to be a good thing for us. It's going to boost our GDP or our
I know what he means by
our
that.
markets, right?
What he means by that.
Basically, his argument was that, listen, business is going to prosper because now he could pay people less. You could pay Venezuelans minimum wage for the same job that Trini is going to do the job for. But what's going to happen to all these people that you pushing onto the breadline and you
Silly,
making
you see
unemployed?
what I'm saying. Remember, you don't do analyze something. You look at the strong points. You look at the weak points. How does a country absorb 100,000 people of 1.3 million? That's almost a tenth of the population.
Yeah.
It's like asking America's about 300,000 people, 300 million people. And they say to America, absorb 300 million people. And some fool tells you it's going to be better for the economy.
Yeah.
No, that's point one.
I mean, obviously there'll be good and bad points if you properly manage it. But you need to strike a balance.
But the point before you even go there is that you bringing these people in is the impact upon your educational system because they're going to go to school. So you have more school places. You have more teachers. Impact upon your health systems. More people getting sick, you want more doctors, more nurses. How does a country absorb that? Now, you know, Miss Merkel in Germany fell because of that.
Angela Merkel?
Yes, because there are about 1 million immigrants coming from Africa, and people say we can't absorb all of that. Now, what we should be doing, we should be applying to some international agency for assistance to prepare us to absorb these people. And so while we transition in, then of course we have a mechanism for absorbing them. Then secondly, of course, we could probably use it to be a more bilingual people, have Spanish and et cetera.
Yeah, well, we know most of the people visiting the brothels now bilingual.
Is that right?
Well, they have to speak Spanish to speak to the women.
Okay, and then women just action them, okay, but you speak. But also, importantly enough, is that also the crime. These guys are bringing a lot of guns and they haven't. So
definitely.
The crime. So the top is nonsense about they're going to lower the wages. They lower the wages for 1 year, but who's going to go to work? Again, the poor black folk.
Yeah, there was a study done. It was published by I think the Chicago School of Economics, right, which are one of the most prominent schools of economics in the world, and they were talking about
Chicago University.
Yes.
University of Chicago,
Yeah, and they were saying that basically proven, you know how they had the idea of trickle-down economics?
Yeah.
They were proven that's basically bullshit.
It doesn't
The
work.
trickle-up economics works.
Yeah.
So basically, if you give tax cuts to people that are not as affluent, they will spend it more, right?
Because the people that's put in the bank and that's
which means if you cut the funding, if you cut their pay as well, you will expect to see a negative
cut
impact.
the money that they'll buy luxurious things, but a person who gets you're catching your skin, you stimulate the local banks, the local industries, the local shops, and so on and so forth. So that's what happens.
And you promote entrepreneurship because now they have the ability to
so
take
this
some
guy
risks.
who talks about this Venezuela being a boom, he's not. Because at that time, the question, how much could you absorb?
Yeah.
I mean, could we absorb, if we accept this logic, then you can absorb a third of them coming in. So you have 500,000 people Venezuelan.
Yeah, and he just completely ignored
Was that Hussein?
I will send you the link because I have it. I had it on Twitter and I replied to it on Twitter just so I could try to find back the guy.
Yeah.
But I'll try to have him on one of these podcasts. I don't know if he'll be as willing as you.
Well, ask them. But I gotta end now.
Yeah.
But ask them and let us do this again. I promise you I'll do it again. I'm gonna take all your information. I'll give you all my information. And when I'm back here, we can talk again.
Yeah, listen, I will be willing to have you on anytime that you're free because this was so much fun.
All right. Okay.
All right, so thanks again.
Read my book. We'll talk about my book and we'll talk about tackling.
Definitely. Good to have you, man.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Take care.
Man.
Bye.